Hello and welcome to Cape Ann ARTWaves. I'm Jacqueline Ganim-DeFalco. I'm your host for today. Our guest is James McLeod. Our goal with this show is to really go deep with artists, understand their inspiration, and understand where they are in today's climate and how they're adjusting to it and adapting and trying new things. So welcome, James. James is in Essex with the Bubble Factory. So James, tell us a little bit about you and your work and your inspiration.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I have a glass studio in Essex. We've been here since about 2016. If we want to dive right into my work, we have a multimedia art studio here, and I do a lot of different things on a daily basis. With our production line, my role is to design the work, prototype it, and begin the fabrication and teach a team of glassblowers to make all the production work that we make. And on top of that, I have another vein of work that I do, which is to do custom fabrication work and design work for architectural installations, lighting, and private commissions. So that's where my head is most days, is managing the team, thinking ahead, designing work, designing new pieces, new colors, new shapes, new forms, and then making sure that the past product is continuing to develop, and then reaching forward and trying to think about new creative ideas for larger projects and installations that we can work on throughout the year.
Okay, just take a quick step backward and tell me a little bit about your personal background in the arts.
So about my background? Yeah, background, I've been blowing glass for about 20 years. I started it when I was in college, and I've always been sort of interested in mixed media, but glass has always pulled me in as a career, as a way of making income. When I was younger, I was working in glass studios, dozens of glass studios over the years, and sort of worked my way up as a designer and a fabricator. And that's part of my career. The other part of my background is that I'm an educator. I work at Mass College of Art and Design. I've been there for about 14 years. I've run the glass program for a long time there. So I guess I would say I have a multifaceted background that involves glass, involves sculpture, involves also working as a designer, and I wear a lot of hats in what I do.
Absolutely. Glass is a fascinating area. I've actually worn quite a bit of my own glass today just to get in the right spirit for the interview. But I think understanding your sort of design palette is of real interest to the audience. So maybe, just take off that sort of hat of having to worry about everyone else and just for a moment focus in on how you've distinguished yourself as an artist.
That's a good question. That's a lot of.
It wasn't meant to be a trick question.
With the work I design, I think it's about, clean lines, nice designs, simple palette, minimal. A lot of it sort of pulls back to references mid-century modern work in a way. And, everything that I develop is sort of careful, thoughtful, and again, very minimal in terms of what we do. So a finished piece might go through, dozens of iterations before it actually gets to the final shape. I think I look at my design work and I compartmentalize that in one respect, as and that's again, as I take on that role as a designer, I'm trying to work within the context of that existing field, push beyond it a little bit, and pull in a lot of my influences that I think derive from my work as a fine artist and a sculptor, and bring those into the work that I make.
That's great. I think that definitely helps. And we'll look forward to seeing a photograph in the middle of all this of one of your pieces, something that's just really representative of your design style. So I think that's always exciting. So let's just take a little pause to talk about today's climate, because it seems like exactly when did you set up the Bubble Factory?
We've been here since 2016. We have been operational since November 2019.
Okay, so an interesting time for you.
I apologize. Since 2018 November.
Oh, okay. So that's given you maybe a full year or so of operations, James. All right. So obviously you made a decision to come to Cape Ann. I'm just curious, what brought you to Cape Ann specifically? And then we're going to talk about, a little bit more about the present.
So I was living in Boston. I've lived in cities for a couple decades in San Francisco, New York, Boston, and my wife and our family was expanding. We were outgrowing my studio in the South End, and we have some family up here, so we've been up here a fair amount on weekends, and we just decided one weekend to start looking and seeing what the housing market might be like. And within a few days, I was looking for a small detached building on a property, and we found a 6,000 square foot barn that was the blank canvas for what the studio is now. So we spent about 2 years renovating this space and turning it into what it is. But I think when I got here, I didn't realize how much I needed to be out of the city. I think I needed to be, I think for creatively having space, and both physical space and mental space of being up here in such a beautiful environment has been very inspiring, and especially for myself and for my entire team of workers too. We sort of take a break from our lives, and we can get inside this bubble here in our studio and just work without any of the outside world coming in. I think it's a really nice asset.
Right. So now let's just transition to, because I think Corey's video does a wonderful job of explaining, how, really showing everybody working and all of that. So of course, everything came to a screeching halt in terms of, being able to have people in your space. So how have you adjusted to that, and what are the kinds of things that you're doing to innovate around the current challenges?
Yeah. So I think adaptability is key in all of this. Right. I mean, we shut down, put the brakes on, closed the doors on March 20th. And I have such a great team of people. I was out of town on vacation with my family, and when all this happened, and I had to negotiate this remotely because we weren't actually able to leave where we were. And so that all happened, and then it was immediately just a process of reassessing and reevaluating what our goals are as a business. And I think that's something that we are very familiar with. It's something we do on a monthly basis, an annual basis, a quarterly basis. We stop, assess, what things are working, what things aren't as a team. I have about 10 people that work for me here. A few studio managers and I get together on a regular basis and sort of figure out, reevaluate the business model constantly. And so this was nothing new for us, the actual process of reevaluating what our goals are. Obviously, there were much different parameters under these circumstances, but it really was a matter of editing and, being resourceful and innovative with how we're going to move forward.
Okay. So what's the most powerful thing that's come out of this for you personally then?
Perspective. I think having, I've been running on all cylinders for 2 years now, or more than that, but at least since we've been open, every single day, 7 days a week, we're in here doing something, whether it's, 5 days a week, it's production with a team of 6 people. The weekends we're doing classes. I'm taking in new clients. I'm, doing outreach. We're doing events. In some respects, we were doing more than we weren't doing more than we could handle, but we were really at that sort of tipping point where we decided to pull back a little bit. So I think what this allowed me to do is, suddenly I'm here with 10 people on a weekly basis or daily basis, and now I'm here by myself.
So I know, and then I think that's sort of a strange gift, right? An unexpected gift. So let's switch over to process for a moment. We probably should do this, we want to be conscious of time, but I think the process in glass, the opportunity to create, has some parameters. So I'd like to understand a little bit about the process, a little bit about some of the larger problems you've had to personally solve. Just pick one that's sort of top of mind, and talk about that just from a personal artistic perspective.
I think to paint with a broad brush, what is always a bit of a challenge is of being able to communicate creatively with whatever client you're working with. Everybody has a different idea from what I, as an artist, the ideas that I have, and then also what my team is able to fabricate. So I think, the challenge sometimes is communicating to a client what parameters we're working with, what are the limitations of what we're doing. We're always willing to push beyond those limitations, but as a finished product, coming to agreement on what we want. So oftentimes we'll do a design phase that will last a long time. Everybody will agree, and then we'll go into a prototyping phase in the studio and bring back the object, and the client, it'll be far different from what they wanted. So we always anticipate there's going to be more time than expected to remake work and to really get the product that somebody wants in the end.
Interesting. That's highly unusual when I think about artists, because most of the artists that I speak with are just creating. They're not necessarily customizing something for a particular client.
That's true. Yeah, and we have a whole range of work that is, what you see is what you get. This is the finished piece. But I think that's one thing we wanted to offer and that we enjoy doing as a team of glassmakers is meeting people at that challenge and being able to, it's one thing to say, can I change the color? But another for a client to bring in, a series of photographs and ask us to replicate some Venetian piece or chandelier or something like that. Where it gets to be a really creative area that is enjoyable for us and challenging, and that's why we got into this in the first place, because we like the challenge. But at the same time, then we have to figure out where we meet in that sort of collaborative zone.
Very different, I have to say. So you're still teaching, and I guess things must be a little different right now. You did mention to me you're on sabbatical this year. Was that correct?
Yes. I'm on sabbatical for another 2 months.
Another 2 months. So you'll have to think really innovatively when you get back into mass art. But in the meantime, what we were discussing the other day that I thought might be of interest is, you're going to have a lot of different perspective now to share with your students. So what are some of the top line things that you now want to be able to share with them after navigating these last few months?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I talk about my team with this, about this with my team a lot, is that, as artists, we deal with uncertainty on a daily basis, always. I mean, I think if you are a blue chip level artist, that's a different story, but the average maker and studio artist is constantly dealing with uncertainty. Where's your next coming from? When is your application going to come back? When is the grant going to be released? That kind of stuff. So I think that we are actually very well suited as artists and creative people to be dealing with this situation. And I think that some of the, I think the important thing is to look at the assets that we have, number one, and number two, realize that this isn't actually, our process doesn't have to change that much, our studio practice, because we're always uncertain about what's going to happen next, but we continue to make and we continue to create in the face of that. And I think we are resourceful people, we're innovative people, and we're creative, and those are assets that not everybody has in other fields. So I think that's important. And also to remember that confidence and optimism, I think, is going to be huge right now, is that knowing that taking a risk, and I'm going to say this carefully, that taking a calculated risk
Mm-hmm.
is going to pay off, I believe. And it's paid off for us, and I think it'll continue to pay off.
Excellent. So in that vein, I think I know one of the answers to this question, but what's next for you?
Well, again, we've had to rethink a lot of what we're doing. We were, you know, we have an educational aspect to the studio where we run classes all year round. So those have really come to a stop. You know, right now we've put some in the fall, but who knows what's going to happen. So that component of our business, which is about a quarter of our time and revenue, has stopped. So we're channeling all of our creative energy into a new storefront that we have, retail space in Rockport. And that was another, speaking of risk, that was something that, you know, somebody came to me in January and offered the space to take over a retail space on Bearskin Neck. It wasn't necessarily, we were at capacity already, but I tend to do this and say yes to everything like this. February, March came around. I was considering, you know, trying to figure out if I wanted to take on the lease or not. I'd already signed it, but I was trying to figure out if we wanted to move forward. And I said, okay, let's do it. I'm thankful for that risk right now, because really, I don't know what other outlets we would have looking into the summer. You know, our wholesale accounts have, you know, pretty much come to a halt, and so have our classes. So right now we're getting a lot of small orders, we're getting a lot of custom orders, and we're going to put all our energy into this retail space. We're lucky we took another risk and produced, you know, I put a capital investment in this spring into producing a lot of work for the store, doing prototyping, and that we didn't see an immediate return on that. That was days of, you know, a whole studio full of people getting paid to try work and try out new designs. And I'm thankful we did it, because we have the product to fill the store now. And sort of one of the goals, which is inadvertently being fulfilled.
Well, James, we're going to have to wrap up, but I just wanted to thank you for your energy, your good energy that you're putting into this and into Cape Ann. And we need to really get to know you as a community. And so welcome to the Cape Ann Arts community. And to the audience, look forward to enjoying this on YouTube, on Cape Ann's local 1623 studios, on local television, on Facebook, and everywhere else on social media. And so let's enjoy it and share it. And thank you again to James McLeod from the Bubble.
Thank you very much for having us.